A very good morning to you. You're watching TV47. This is the Morning Cafe Show where we wake you up and your morning coffee is hotter than...
Oh yes, the morning cafe is hotter than your coffee. Actually.
That's it. That's the slogan. Week 2 for me. Still settling in, but I'm sure so far so good.
Oh yes, you'll get the hang of it. Karibu sana. This is the Morning Cafe. My name is Freddie Ndumuli. Ready to kickstart your day in style as we always do. Yes, and this morning, of course, State of the Nation will be having a power panel. Senator Danson Mungatana of Tana River, Ishmael Nyaribo, advocate of the High Court, and Ruth Ambogo, member of the DAPK party. Unfortunately, Titus Lote may not make it to studio today. He's a bit under the weather, but the show will continue nonetheless.
Absolutely. Remember, later on we'll be talking about relationships. And with me, I'll have a counselor, Dr. Julius Kimani, as well as Nasim Mkatha, who's a psychology, as well as the founder of Hugs Organization. And our topic today is dating a co-worker.
Ooh, a hot one, this one.
Very, very hot. So make sure you stay. Oh, well.
Or let me ask, have you ever?
No, I've never, but I don't think I'm very pro it. I feel like I'm against it.
Okay.
Especially because of the friction and all the backlash that it comes with.
What do you think?
Yeah.
All right, after that.
We also have Morning Cafe's Tasty Wednesday, and we went to Pullman Hotels here in Upper Hill, Nairobi. We have Chef Hilal Kafarani, and remember, he is going to be taking us to France with his very exotic, award-winning dish. Interesting.
All right, a quick look at the dailies this morning, and we start off with the standard, Raila Unleashed. You know, we've been talking about how President William Ruto has been launching projects all over the country. Yesterday, he was launching Raila Odinga. So Raila Unleashed, that's a big headline on the standard.
All right, apart from that, we also have the Daily Nation, and the headline says, Raila's show of power. There's a photo there of course, the heads of states, as well as Raila Odinga right there. And I remember the Ruto administration has asserted that its influence will be there by rallying in the support of the East African community as it's unveiled. That's Raila Odinga's candidacy for chairperson of the African Union Commission.
Of course, I will be back to take a bigger look at the local dailies. I am made for Africa. That's
I love
declaration
that.
by Raila
Absolutely
himself.
love that.
That's a People Daily.
He's like, Kenya is now too small for me.
Oh,
Guess what? I am made for Africa.
You said no twice, thrice. Let me go find something bigger.
Greener pastures.
Yes. Ruto game plan to propel Raila's AUC campaigns. And I guess this is the main discussion across all the dailies locally. And a photo there, because people have been saying this is not a handshake, it's a broad-based government. Yeah. So everyone has been looking for a photo where William Ruto and Raila Odinga are actually shaking hands.
Yep.
This is one of them. On Taifa Leo, Hodi Hodi Africa. And this gap here, I don't know why, because everyone has been talking about the handshake. So this was captured just moments before the handshake.
But it seems like they are moving towards it.
Oh yes, definitely.
Right? It's a step in the right direction. Yeah. It's already happened. We already know that.
With a certificate behind there, Kenya's AUC chairmanship bid. I think I like this photo on the front page of Taifa Leo. Hodi Hodi Africa.
And of course, that's the Business Daily, where it has been revealed that Treasury has spent 47 billion shillings on Ruto fuel subsidy. And of course, Treasury data confirms the policy U-turn. And remember, the full year allocation has been overshot by 89.9%. We will be getting into that in just a moment.
Cross over the border into Uganda, and the Daily Monitor always has a very clean page. Today, another special report, jobless youth, vacant government jobs. So they say there's a paradox for the ages. While the country is struggling with high unemployment levels, a State of Human Resource 2023 report in Uganda indicates that thousands of jobs at several government entities remain unfilled, raising questions on the country's planning. Now, the Daily Monitor has been having special reports across this week at different issues. So this is the only story given prominence on the front page, and they have the numbers of in public universities, vacancies there, and unfilled positions in public service as well as a health service. That's the front page of the Daily Monitor. Staying in Uganda, this is a new vision.
Right now, more than 6,000 aged workers refuse to retire. Over 290,000 government jobs still vacant. So, of course, they started off with another angle, right? They started off with the aged workers who have refused to retire utterly. And remember, the other newspaper, which is the Daily Monitor, right, spoke about how there is unemployment amongst the youths. So, all in all, this still seems to be something that Ugandans are looking at today.
They're calling it the
Jobless Youth
State of Human Resource 2023 report, I think. think even this headline is based on that same thing.
Absolutely. And
still,
of course, our top story today, every newspaper is covering this. And
even in Uganda.
Even in Uganda.
It is big news in Uganda as well. Museveni endorses Raila for top AU job. And that picture of Raila Odinga alongside President William Ruto.
That seems to be on every newspaper.
Yes, it is the biggest discussion across East Africa.
Yeah.
That's in Uganda. Let's take a look at what's headlining in Tanzania. And on the front page of Mwananchi, the photo of the former Prime Minister of Kenya, Raila Odinga, features prominently there on the side as well. But habari kuu pale, Masauni, polisi wakaa kitimoto. Wanasema masuala ya usalama, hali ya uhalifu vyachukua nafasi. Wachambuzi waeleza wanachotamani kiwe matokeo ya kikao utekaji waibukia bungeni na mahakamani. There've been a lot of abductions and kidnappings in Tanzania, including of small school-going children. And that has been a big discussion. They're saying it is being discussed in parliament as well as in the courts. Kwengineko watatu kunyongwa mauaji ya Milembe. So yes, watu watatu kati ya wanne walioshtakiwa kwa kosa la mauaji ya mfanyakazi wa kampuni ya dhahabu Gelta Milembe Suleiman wametiwa hatiani na kuhukumiwa adhabu ya kunyongwa hadi kufa. That makes it to the front page of the Mwananchi.
And remember, the Citizen says that 70% of workers in formal sectors have no contracts. And this is according to the latest Human Rights and Business report that was released by the Legal and Human Rights Center, which has identified several issues, including 69.4% of workers in the formal sector having no actual valid contracts with their employers. So yeah, over here, we definitely see the numbers, and we'll be crunching on those numbers later on as we get into the newspapers. And of course, the top story, that is Samia Suluhu says, why Tanzania is backing Raila Odinga's AU commission bid. Remember, in the Ugandan newspaper, the Daily Monitor, we saw the same with President Museveni. And here, right here, President Samia also seems to be backing Raila Odinga's candidacy. Oh, yes. So that's perhaps the biggest story across the region. And we'll be back to take a look at what the local dailies especially are saying in as far as this is concerned. Let's now come back home and take a look at the traffic situation in Nairobi. This morning, remember, it is back to school week, so a lot of school buses already on the roads. That means traffic. There will be a build-up of traffic this week, I assume. Even before we even talk, look at Jogoo Road, around Makadara area. This has not been this long, this bit of red. For a while now. For a while now. Now you can see it starts all the way from Buruburu. Very close to Lekoni Road at the roundabout of St. Stephen's Jogoo Road. It is a long stretch of dark, this is, what color is this? Red, dark red. Meaning there's a standstill there. So if you're using Jogoo Road and you're yet to leave home, avoid this area if you can, around Makadara, Mbotela area. Farther on, next to... Another build-up of traffic right here. Yes, now this is once you get into town. This is Haile Selassie Avenue, around Railway Bus Station. What do you call this? All the way. Haile Selassie Avenue, all the way from Uhuru Highway down to that roundabout that joins with Landis Road is busy. So many people coming to work. I saw so many parents trying to take their children back to school, to high school. So that's big bags. So yes, it's busy along this area as children and their parents try to get transportation back to school this week. Absolutely. So the other trouble spot is usually around this area, Pangani, but nothing much to report this morning. That seems to be clear today. Yes. This morning at least. Remember, you can let us know if you're stuck anywhere or if you see any unusual activity on the roads. You can talk to us. The hashtag is Morning Cafe TV47, at Shiksha Aurora, at Fred Indimuli, at TV47 News, on X at TV47KE, on Facebook and on Instagram. Talk to us. Tell us if you're stuck somewhere and we'll try and get you home as quick as possible. All right, let's come back and take a look at the weather situation this morning. And we start off with Migori. In Migori, because this is where President William Ruto begins his 4-day tour of Nyanza province today. As it is right now, it's the weather 19 degrees. Yes. But it promises to be a bit sunny throughout the day. Highs of 28 degrees later on. Wow. That's a sunny day. Yes. Slight chance of rain later on in the evening, starting 5 p.m. So warm weather, very beautiful for a tour by the president. Absolutely. Yes. Lucky him. He brought the sunshine with him. Yes. Let's take a look at Kisumu, where he may be going to later on this week. It is 20 degrees. It still feels like 20 degrees. And of course, with highs of 29.
20 degrees is actually very warm for this time of day. It's only 11 past.
So yes, the highs of 29 degrees is what we are expected to see. Sunny throughout, which is fantastic.
This is holiday weather.
This is beautiful summer. Summer is here. December has come early.
Highs of 28 degrees in Kisumu.
Seems to be a good day with no chances of rain.
Okay, let's take a look at the coast. Do we have the coast? No, sorry.
We have Nairobi and Nyeri.
We have Nyeri.
Oof, a cold day in Nyeri, 15 degrees, which feels like 14 degrees. But let's be honest. In Kenya, if it's 15 degrees, it feels like 5.
We'll come and take a look at what
currently
Nairobi
experiencing
feels like.
it.
Yeah. So yes, but it promises to get a bit warmer as the day progresses.
Yes.
Highs of 22. That's the highest Nyeri will experience today, and that's later on in the afternoon.
Absolutely, cloudy day there indeed. Right now,
finally, let's finish up with
capital,
Nairobi,
where it says 16 degrees, which feels like 16 degrees, which we all know is a lie. But anyways, it's okay. We shall believe the weatherman.
Cloud intervals for the better part of the morning, and
highs
a bit
of 24.
Sun. Yes, a bit of sun later on, 23 degrees as we get towards the evening. And this will persist even tomorrow. I can see Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday. It's starting to get warmer. You see, by Friday, at least we'll be getting highs of 25.
100%.
We've not been experiencing highs of 25 in Nairobi.
It's been a while. It's been a minute. Now, remember, the Kenya Meteorological Department, in one of the newspapers, actually, it's a headline, it says that this entire week, do expect harsh weather. So I guess now Friday is when things will start, clearing up, looking warmer. But yeah, from Monday was cold.
Oh, yes.
So
even now it is cold.
It's looking warmer.
Yes, but it's getting slightly warmer because at least on Monday it was 13 degrees centigrade. 6
Good news for us.
All right. So in as far as diary is concerned, we have one major story, and that is President William Ruto will be heading to Nyanza to kickstart his 4-day tour of that province or that region. And he's starting off with Migori County today. He is expected to move to Homa Bay County, Kisumu County, and Siaya towards the end of the week. He'll be there until Friday or Saturday, inspecting and opening, as well as commissioning a lot of projects there. He's come under a lot of criticism for his continued action in launching and relaunching and commissioning projects. Yeah. Yesterday, he launched a big one.
Yeah.
Yes, Raila Odinga.
The biggest one so far.
The biggest one. And,
quite broad-based.
Yes. So, yeah, that's as far as the diary is concerned right now. Do we have today in history? Okay, we do not have today in history because Stanley is away. But tomorrow he'll be back, or at least on Friday. So let's now get back and take a look at the dailies this morning. Yes, and we are in agreement that there's only one big headline this morning across all dailies locally, and that is this: Raila Odinga. Yes, so this is a standard, the front page. And the standard is usually a very long paper on the front page. It has the longest front page. If you look at it, this is what they call the portrait.
And, well, 90% I would say is this picture.
That handshake.
And that handshake, which is very important.
You know, they'd said, and very many people had sworn, there will never be a handshake. Never be a handshake ever again.
And guess what? Third time lucky?
Well, it can only be Raila Odinga. So Raila Unleashed, they say, taking the big stage. Bitter political rivals unite with the world in the presence of 3 EAC states presidents and representatives to crown Raila Odinga as a bold, visionary and steadfast Pan-Africanist whose professional and technocratic credentials make him the ideal candidate for the African Union Commission chair position, kicking off campaigns proper. Now, you see, this is the irony, that they all congregated to crown Raila Odinga as a bold, visionary and state-first Pan-Africanist. We've just come from hot debates, hot campaigns where he was not the best person.
Yeah.
Some of those people singing his praises now include the Deputy President, Rigathi Gachagua. What do you imagine?
Yeah, well, imagine the president had something very interesting to say as well down here. And he says, Raila enjoys a sterling reputation as a zealous Pan-Africanist who has demonstrated a strong faith in a continent's possibilities and a commitment to laying a robust foundation for transformation in our time. That's what Dr. William Ruto, the president of Kenya, has to say.
And you know what? Once we get to the cartoons now, you'll get the real message.
And he also had something interesting to say. That's
Raila Odinga himself.
Yes, he says, I believe in the story of the African lion. I'm sitting on African gold, oil, diamonds, iron, and copper areas. And of course, and I have the ability to transform all these materials that have the wealth into wealth for the benefit of my people. He calls the entire Africa, my people, his
Kenya
people.
is no longer big enough for him. I think he's bigger than Kenya.
Pan-Africanist.
Pan-Africanist.
That's what we'd like to
We no longer call him a statesman. Now he's a Pan-Africanist.
He is.
Other highlights that found space away from this big story on the front page. Despite a court order, teachers vow strike is on. Yes, schools are reopening, but KUPPET, the teacher union representing post-primary teachers, insists their strike is still on. So what exactly will happen to secondary school students? It's another big story. Right. Another highlight, deaths suffering as sanctions wreak havoc in Burundi. And in sports, Paralympians hope to make a mark in Paris.
Okay.
That's the Standard this morning.
Now let's take a look at the Daily Nation, where once again the top story is what we have been covering all morning so far, Raila's show of power. Remember, the Ruto administration yesterday asserted its influence by rallying the support of the East African community as it unveiled Raila Odinga's candidacy for chairperson of the African Union Commission. This picture, very popular across all the newspapers as we see the heads of states gathering together to take a photo for a beautiful photo moment. Not many smiles there, but you know what? It's okay. We get it. Right, of course, on the side, we see other stories where families agony over missing kin as police defy courts. That's on page 3. Of course, moving on, let's talk about the strike. That is the promise of pay rise as strike halted. And that's the Employment and Labour Relations Court that has actually suspended the strike by the Kenya Union of Post-Primary Education Teachers pending the hearing of a petition filed by the Teacher Service Commission as the state promises to give tutors a pay rise by Friday. So that's another top story that we have been looking at this entire week. But yes, it has taken sidelines.
You'll find that on the back page of this paper.
All right.
Storm over NYS firearms order. Now, this is an order that the president gave on Monday when he presided over the Pass Out Parade in Gilgil. And he said that NYS, the National Youth Service, will now have to undergo training in handling of firearms. What do you think about that?
Well,
they'll be handling guns now.
I mean,
NYS.
We do expect things to get a bit fiery, but that's going to be later on. I mean, in the beginning, I feel like there are going to be some hiccups along the way as this happens, but then I feel like with time things will progress and things shall get better. Well, that's my hope. I'm positive that we do hope to see heightened security and not the other way around.
Interesting. Other highlights on the front page of this paper found there at the bottom. After brief ceasefire, Ruto allies take on Gachagua. And I saw one of the, I think was a Secretary General of the UDA party, Hassan Omar Hassan, really talking ill about the deputy president and calling him out. And it's very, I don't know, well, it's typical politics, but very unusual. Meanwhile,
right now, DCI fails teachers in 15 billion shilling fraud case. Now, tutors have actually lost 15 billion shillings in fraudulent schemes. But, you know, this is something that we have been seeing in the newspapers in the past few days. Last week, I remember we saw something about oil. Right? And this was where there was some fraudulence noted and there was billions being reported missing yet again, no proper documents. And of course, this is something that we are seeing every week. There seems to be something that the DCI is looking at.
And this one is a very sad situation because it involves the Savings and Credit Society. That's a SACCO. So 15 billion shillings lost and the DCI cannot trace it. Very unfortunate.
Absolutely.
It's a Daily Nation. I am made for Africa is a big headline of the People Daily this morning.
And he says, I'm ready to serve, my heart is ready, my hands are steady, and with your support, I shall get the opportunity to be of service to Africa, the cradle of mankind. I am made in Eastern Africa for Africa.
And you know, this sounds more, it sounds more like an acceptance speech.
Yes, already.
It's like he's already received, he's already gotten the votes.
I like to see that he's manifesting. Sometimes speaking to the universe works. Or should I say, speaking to Africa this time around.
The election doesn't come up until February of next year. So, yeah.
We like to see see a positive candidate.
Slow down, Kiasi. Court stops teachers' strike pending case. That's as far as the Kupet strike is concerned. Will we see them back in class today as the schools reopen? That's a question. But the court said, ngoja kidogo, as we discuss this. Meanwhile, there's a promise that they will be paid. So, yeah, there's light at the end of the tunnel.
Okay.
On the top strip, increasing cyber threats call for proper expert training. Matters IT there. Let's take a look at the Star.
Right now, Ruto game plan to propel Raila'S AUC campaigns. And of course, the secretariat made up of top diplomats who will be spearheading cross-Africa push. Once again, the picture that we have been seeing where heads of states have gathered for a photo moment. I remember the big handshake moment between President William Ruto and Raila Odinga right there. On the side, though, we have some other stories that the Star is currently looking at, where the auditor explains why Rivertex is currently on its knees. And of course, Rivertex is actually a state-owned textile firm. And remember, it's facing an imminent collapse rather, amidst revelations of massive losses accounting to more than 3 billion shillings. Again, we're talking in billions. Moving on, MPs to approve tax reliefs and trim treasury powers. And then lastly, chilly weather to continue in many areas, and that's the forecast. So another grey week expected. But as Fred and I have noted, Friday is looking a bit warmer.
Just a bit warmer, but the indication is that the chilly weather will continue. That's not the kind of news we want.
Right at the top there, soaring teen pregnancies in Nyeri spark an outcry.
What's happening in Nyeri? Soaring teen pregnancies in that area. That's a bit worrying. That's one of the highlights on the front page of the Star. And Taifa Leo, kwenye ukurasa wa mbele wa gazeti hili la Taifa Leo, anasema hodi hodi Afrika. Hatimaye kinyang'anyiro cha kuwania wenyekiti wa tume ya Afrika chaanza, serikali ikizindua rasmi kampeni ya Raila. Anasema Waziri Mkuu wa zamani Raila Odinga sasa ataanza rasmi kubisha katika mataifa yote 52 ya Afrika, akisaka uungwaji mkono katika azma yake ya kuchaguliwa mwenyekiti wa tume ya Umoja wa Afrika AUC.
Okay.
Habari kamili kwenye ukurasa wa pili, na picha pale Rais William Ruto msalamia, naweza muita mwandani wake sasa Raila Odinga. Vidokezo zaidi kwenye ukurasa wa mbele wa Taifa Leo, masuala ya siasa. Kalonzo sasa ajiteua kinara wa Azimio. Out with Raila Odinga, Kalonzo says I'm the guy now. Kwingineko, wapinga NYS kufunzwa bunduki. Yes, not many people are very
keen on this.
And then as far as American politics is concerned, majimbo 7 mwamuzi wa rais USA. Majimbo ya Arizona, Georgia, Michigan, Nevada, North Carolina, Pennsylvania na Wisconsin kuamua kinyang'anyiro cha urais kule Amerikani. Uchaguzi huu unakuja mwezi wa Novemba. Pale juu, Gachagua achemsha mulima tena. Alikuwa amedai wakosoaji wake hawatachaguliwa uchaguzini mwaka wa 2027. Je, kunani kule mlimani? Masuala ya spoti, wameandika Maniu hapa. Maniu yatumia shilingi bilioni 7.2 kusajili. Hata watumie pesa ngapi? Imenasa kiungo Manuel Ugat kutoka Paris Saint-Germain. Bilioni 7. Gazeti la Taifa Leo, bilioni 7 zinaenda wapi na watu wanapoteza mechi kila siku.
All right, on the Business Daily, seems like it is personal when it comes to Man United with Fred Ndimuli. But yes, moving on to matters business, where it has been revealed that Treasury spent 47 billion shillings on Ruto fuel subsidy. And of course, the Treasury has revealed that Kenya used billions of shillings in taxpayer funds to subsidize fuel. That is, of course, this is something that, we are looking at, because what was allocated to the fuel subsidy scheme, Fred, was actually 24.88 billion. That is for the full year period.
And this is another thing that President William Ruto and the Kenya Kwanza administration had sworn they would not go for, subsidizing fuel. They had said they will do any other thing apart from subsidizing, but now they spent up to 47 billion shillings on Ruto, on the subsidy,
and
beyond what had even been allocated.
89.9% is what the full year allocation has been overshot by, actually.
Well, I guess for politicians, you can go back and forth whenever you make any promise.
All right, another story here that says listed banks that double interim dividend, and they're supposed to be 13 billion shillings. And this is, of course, this is something that says listed banks have doubled their interim dividends, that is to 13.4 billion shillings from 6.7 billion shillings in the first half of last year, signaling enhanced payouts for the null year that is ending in December.
All right.
And of course, this payout is driven by the reinstatement of dividends by KCB Group.
Okay, other quick highlights on the ticker on the front page of the Business Daily. KRA to lose waiver powers in proposed law. This is interesting.
Yes.
Because I say MPs Kenya Revenue Authority will lose the power to waive taxes if MPs approve a fresh proposal to take away the mandate from the taxman. So who will be approving waivers, tax waivers, if not KRA?
Moving on, Kenya Railways eyes edible oil clinker to boost SGR cargo. And Kenya Railways, of course, has backed the expansion of the list of commodities transported on the standard gauge railway to support growth of volumes of cargo. So we will be seeing different commodities and, of course, a more diverse list of commodities that will be transported.
Especially with the extension of this SGR.
SGR, yes. Right.
Family Bank half-year profit up 17% on increased interest. And finally, pension funds raise investment in offshore and private equity. That is as far as business is concerned.
Yes.
Let's take a look at the cartoons, because this is where I know the truth is. And this is a cartoon on the Standard today. All the cartoons, okay, at least most of them talk about Raila Odinga's AU bid.
That's a very interesting photo of Raila Odinga, who's actually wearing the Kenyan sports kit. And then at the back, we have
his coach.
Yeah, saying good luck.
But
good
what is he thinking? He's saying, verbally he's saying good luck, but he's thinking, this is good riddance.
They're called intrusive thoughts.
This is actually where the truth is, in the cartoons, yes? So this is where ukweli unasemekana hapa. A sigh of relief for someone. That's a Standard. On the Star,
we have, of course, heads of states down there. That is Museveni, as well as President Museveni, as well as President Samia. And it says, make Africa great again.
They borrowed from President Donald Trump's mantra, make America great again. So make Africa great again.
And of course, he's been given his wings.
Now, the irony is the people who are throwing the halos.
Yep.
This is what? Rigathi Gachagua, the deputy president.
And President William.
Did you ever imagine that these two gentlemen will be singing praises about Raila Odinga?
And actually uplifting him.
Yes.
You know, have you watched? I feel like this is a Lion King scenario. Look at what's going on there. He's being lifted up.
but look at it in comparison to what we've seen on the Standard.
Yeah.
They're doing it. Why? This is a sigh of relief for them.
Yeah.
Finally, ametuondokea. At least that's what
the cartoon says.
Are saying, not us.
Not us, for sure.
That's a Star. This is the Daily Nation.
Okay, that says Baba AUC candidature unveiling.
A sigh of relief.
All we see is, phew.
Baba AUC candidate unveiling. The guy down here said, wow, finally, this guy is gone. A big sigh of relief for Raila Odinga.
Yeah.
For William Ruto, because he's on sighing, and of course, ule jamaa Murima ako hapo nyuma. And finally, People Daily steers clear of that Raila Odinga debate, talks about the teachers' strike.
Yes.
And,
of course, we see a student right there.
Yes. So they talk about innocent victims.
And a lock.
Innocent victims who are the students.
Yep.
So teachers' strike could lock or unlock their destiny.
Current situation.
Remember, this third term, we do anticipate that the KCSE will be coming up later on towards the end of October and into November. That is, at least this time around, we don't have KCPE.
Yes.
We won't be having KCPE this time, but KCSE, the biggest.
Just around the corner.
Yes, so those are the innocent victims. Imagine you get to your third term, you've learned for all those years. Just as you're about to do your final exam, the teachers go on strike.
And that's I feel like the most crucial part, your last term before exams, because that's when you go through past papers, that's when you have your questions that you want to ask your teachers, that's when you really revise everything, and it happens so quick. In just 2 months, I feel like it could either be a make or break situation.
It is actually a make or break situation for so many of these learners. We'll be looking at some of these discussions and the big headlines on the major dailies. Yes, Raila's bid for the AUC job. Easily the biggest discussion across board, and we'll be having my panel after the break. You can be part of that conversation as well. So make sure you join us through X at TV47 News and on Facebook TV47 Kenya. You can always tag me on X. My handle is at Fred Indemuli.
And after that, at 8 a.m., I'll be back with some relationships topic where we talk about dating a co-worker.
Wow.
So stay tuned for that.
One. What do you think? Would you date your co-worker?
Let us know.
Okay, let's take a break now.
Hey there, friends. Welcome to Kids on the Block, where fun and imagination come alive. We dive into magical world filled with exciting adventures and awesome friends.
What position were you in?
I was number 2.
What position were you?
Number 1.
He decided to cross the bridge by his house and look for food on the other side.
You're going to do half cup of chocolate chips, and the other one, we're going to do half cup of the blueberries.
So, grab your imagination hats and get ready to explore with us. Join us every Saturday at 9 a.m. for new friends, amazing stories, and tons of laughter.
Join us as we explore the journeys of those who defy the odds and break barriers. We dive deep into the stories of triumph.
Sometimes when parenting a child with a special need or whatever disability, family life becomes a bit complicated and you may end up raising the child on your own.
Here, we inspire.
I have a farm which one we showcase with other dyslexic youths and autism how to farm.
Motivate.
It's never easy, but what we do, the best thing is to work with another parent who has an elder child than yours.
And break through the barriers one story at a time. Push your boundaries beyond the limit. Saturdays at 8 p.m. The Grind, where business meets brilliance. It's not just about the ideas.
I was working as a shampoo boy. I used to wash clients' hair on the sink.
It's about making them happen. From big wins.
In primary school, when we would be asked what people want to be, I was categorical that I want to be a nurse.
To hard lessons.
The consoles change, the gaming equipment keep changing.
We cover it all. Tune in to The Grind, where every episode is packed with insights.
The person who is serving customers, always be a customer-centric.
Strategies.
When you pay attention to detail, you get luxury items.
And stories to fuel your ambition. Don't just dream it, grind it. Mondays at 7:30 p.m.
Jiunge nasi tunapoangazia safari za viongozi bora. Kutoka kwa ushindi mkubwa hadi masomo magumu.
Wakati wetu kwamba wasichana si wa kusoma, ni wa kuolewa, ng'ombe ipatikane, wazazi wakuwe watajiri.
Tunashughulikia yote.
I wish I were a better investor.
My parents taught me how to look for things for myself.
Tazama Mfahamu Kiongozi, ambapo kila kipindi kimejaa maarifa, mikakati na hadithi za kukuza azma yako.
For me to succeed, I have to fight.
Kila Alhamisi saa 1:30.
All right, welcome back. You're watching Morning Cafe on TV47 with me, Freddie Ndimuli. Time for us to take a look at the big headlines on State of the Nation. Raila Unleashed is a big headline on the front page of The Standard. Raila's show of power is a big one on the front page of the Daily Nation. On People Daily, I am made for Africa, still in reference to Raila Odinga. Star Ruto game plan to propel Raila's AUC campaigns. And on Taifa Leo, habari kuu kwenye ukurasa wa mbele, hodi hodi Africa. Those are the dailies this morning. I'm privileged to have with me in studio Senator Danson Mungatana, Senator Tana River County. Karibu sana.
Asante. Good morning.
Yes, also joining us is Wakili Ishmael Nyaribo, Wakili, karibu sana. It's good to have you in studio.
Thank you.
A big day for Raila Odinga, that's what it seems to say. But if you look at the photos, and the one photo that has been used even beyond Africa is the one on the front page of the Daily Nation, where we have the President, William Ruto, right in the middle of this photo, Raila Odinga on one side, President Yoweri Museveni on the other. Of course, alongside other heads of state and former heads of state, and other senior representatives from governments that were present at State House yesterday. It would appear that this is indeed a big deal, both for Raila and for President William Ruto. So, but everyone is talking about Raila Odinga's show of power, Raila Unleashed. But is he really the man of the moment, or is President William Ruto the big deal in here? Senator.
Let me have a go first. The one thing I do also, apart from being the senator from Tana River County, I was given the privilege of being elected by both the National Assembly and the Senate as the head of delegation for the Pan-African Parliament. This is the African Parliament. We are elected 5 of us there. From the National Assembly, there is Honorable Majimbo Kalasinga, Honorable Mukami, Honorable Pasaris. And from the Senate, it's myself and Honorable Professor Margaret Kamar. And I was also chosen to head the delegation. So we have these meetings of the African Parliament 3 times a year. And I will tell you this, that first of all, the elections for the seat, any seat in the continent, it's a very complicated politics. It's not popularity, it's not qualifications as such. You must have very good support of the Francophone nations. Why? Because Francophone nations are very many, small ones, but each one has a vote. You'll find Gabon, you'll find Togo, you'll find Equatorial Guinea, Sierra Leone, you know, small nations. But many of them on the western side of Africa tend to come together. And then, aside from the Francophone factor, there is the Arab Nations League. That League of Arab Nations, it's also a very strong kind of union. And they tend to vote together for any position in the African continent. So the reason I'm giving this background is so that Kenyans listening to me there can understand that because of the way the African continental politics are arranged, the African Union made a decision that for positions that people are interested in, they will be rotational. So that the South African side, there's the Southern Caucasus, there's the Central Caucasus, there's the Eastern side, and the Northern side, Western side. And the reason these seats can circulate, because if you go by one vote, one man, you will find that West Africa will take everything. So it is now time for the Eastern side, for the AUC chairmanship. So the hope was that they will unite. But you know, we've had candidates from various other countries who have declared, as well as Honorable Raila's candidature from Kenya. So what has been going on, which at the initial stages, Raila's candidature was not a strong one. Why? Because there were other, like Djibouti's was a very strong one, and others.
I think the candidate is still in the race.
Yeah, but that is not to be ignored. But there are others who left the race. And when they left the race, they endorsed Raila.
Okay.
That tells you that there's a lot of backroom negotiations that are going on. And I can tell you now, because I have some bit of knowledge on these matters, that the candidature of Honorable Raila Odinga now is a strong one.
Much stronger.
It's much stronger than when we were talking. At the very beginning, it was looking a bit shaky, but knowing how the continental politics now operate and the bids that have withdrawn, that have endorsed him, I think his candidature now is strong, is very strong, and I think, you know, I don't know, unless something happens, maybe because a lot of things can happen, and people can at the last minute go towards the Djibouti guy or something. But from where I sit, his candidature is a viable one. Now, one of the things you must know is that President William Ruto has played a very, very central, position in this game. Why I say so is because the connections the president has made along the globe and then in the continent of Africa since his election have given Kenya a very high standing within the continent. And if maybe people may forget, but he is currently, President Ruto is currently the chair of the reforms that he is the head of state who was selected by other heads of state to chair the reforms within the African Union organs. This is a position that was held by Kagame until last year. So President Ruto now is the boss in terms of those reforms. Secondly, in terms of the climate change agenda, President Ruto again has been selected to head that caucus of the heads of state in Africa. So, and aside from that, we all know he's a person who does not stop or get tired of campaigning. So, I mean, when he sets his mind on something, it tends to come out.
Especially if there's something for him to gain from that. And that seems to be the suggestion in a lot of the cartoons today that, yes, we're talking about Raila Odinga, and but the President William Ruto appears to be the one sighing, giving a sigh of relief. And it's on all the cartoons, at least the 3 cartoons from the Daily Nation. The Standard says he's telling Raila Odinga good luck. But in reality, in his mind, he's saying good riddance. That's a cartoon, not me. On the Daily Nation, yes, Raila Odinga at the podium there, unveiling his candidature, and the president sighing a big sigh of relief right behind him, saying, phew. Same thing on the cartoon on the Star. And we have the president lifting Raila Odinga, who appears to have angelic wings on him. And even the deputy president is throwing halos above Raila Odinga. The change in these 2 gentlemen, the president and even his deputy, singing praises for Raila Odinga is something that many Kenyans are wondering, okay, well, really?
Do they mean it?
Do you mean it? We've just come from 2 years of a lot of acrimony in the political field.
Yeah, and I think, Indimuli, thanks for the invitation. I think we cannot, casualize or demean this big initiative, which is an African agenda. But it is true, every Kenyan actually is asking whether the president means what he's doing, especially when you look at the fact that, just localizing it first, there are young people in cells today, there are young people missing. Because of the kind of strikes, that the protests that happened, and we can't find these young people, and some of them are being charged today. Why are they being charged? Because they were spearheading agenda that Raila himself, is a veteran and supporter of protests to increase democratic space. And these people are arrested, these people are missing. And then you are saying, you are now, really praising Raila Odinga and epitomizing him as an African statesman. So I think this is where Kenyans, and you can see through the cartoons, this is where Kenyans are asking, do you really mean it? If you mean it, let these young people go free. Why are they being arrested? Why are they even being taken to the courts? Because what they are fighting for is what is embodied in the person of Raila Odinga. And now you are praising him. The deputy president was saying that he will guard State House, he will make sure Raila Odinga does not come in. Raila Odinga is in the bedroom now. So why are you vilifying and victimizing the young people who definitely have the biggest agenda in terms of human rights and democratic space? So just from the citizens' perspective, this is how people are looking at it. They might think that you don't mean it. If you mean it, then let the democratic space open up. Let us look at these protests that happened as though it was a phase in life that Kenyans have to go through. So yeah, I think people will be asking whether he really means it, and he has to demonstrate it by... And in terms of good riddance, you know, how the cartoons are putting it, that we are doing away with Raila Odinga. I don't think that is true. I mean, the truth of the matter, Raila Odinga is a Kenyan. He will be here, and you know how the African Union operates. It is not a political club. It is, if you allow me, it's sort of like a secretariat, really. What Raila Odinga will do there is already crafted. It's not like he's going to, like he says, he will look at the minerals in Africa and all this. His role in terms of changing national policies of each of these countries is limited.
Yes.
He doesn't have the free hand to, he's only supposed to be really lobbying, you know, persuading member countries to change their policies to benefit the people. But don't forget that the big brother is looking, and he's not interested in leaving African countries to be free.
Okay.
And this is the major problem we've had in Africa.
But you must admit that in the last few decades, Senator, that the biggest political quagmire that many people, many presidents in Kenya faced has been Raila Odinga. That if you manage to fix Raila Odinga one way or the other, then you've achieved at least 50, 60, 80% of the politics you need to play locally. And President William Ruto appears to have done that and done so quite successfully this time round, that he has fixed Raila Odinga in a place that is comfortable for him. So going forward politically, President William Ruto will sit pretty, don't you think?
You see, people tend to look at things from the eye of their own perspectives. And I have the fortune of having a bit of an expanded perspective because of my interactions with the Pan-African Parliament. And also, I have served until this June as a commissioner in the COMESA Competition Authority. So I have interacted a lot on the continental platform. And one thing I will tell you, what you say may very well be the perspective of a lot of us, the local perspective, but the African Union Commission Chairman is a very, very important position. And if you have any opportunity of securing that position, you go for it. That's why Kenya has not, has not shied off from trying to get that position. If you remember, Musa Faki won by one vote against Amina's bid. And Amina was Kenya's candidate at the time. And that tells you, and then Kenya comes back again to try this time. That tells you that position itself is very important. It plays an important continental role. And why I say so is that the African Union is set up in such a way that there's the heads of state summit. That's where the bosses, our elected presidents, sit. And then because they cannot function there daily, although the chair is always a president, and it's rotational, and it's like, once you do your 1 year, 2 years, you go the next 2 ones. It's not really an elected position. It's like consensus kind of thing. And all of them are very busy people, so they don't sit in Addis Ababa. So the person who runs the show is the African Union Commission chairman. Initially, he used to be called the Secretary General of the African Union. And if you remember, earlier on, we used to have OAU, Organization of African Unity. You used to have people like Ahmed Salim of Tanzania, very powerful people. And they used to be called the Secretary General. But then now, in the reformed kind of setup, the heads of state, they meet once in a while in the summit, at least once every year. But the person who is running the show with the blessing and the power of the heads of state is the African Union Commission chair. And that's where Raila is going. Now, there are so many things in Africa that Kenya stands to gain if we have our own man there. And let me tell you, in terms of trade, in terms of diplomacy, in terms of, even military positioning, it's a big, big thing for us. Now, from the local perspectives, people will say, okay, we are getting rid of this gentleman and so on. But from where I sit, President Ruto's position come 2027 was very strong, with or without Raila. He was still a very formidable candidate.
Wouldn't he have supported any other candidate from Kenya for that position? There are other people who are qualified for the same. You've said it yourself. Amina Mohammed had been fronted for the same. People like Kalonzo Musyoka have enough credentials on diplomacy issues around the continent.
Yes.
Even a retired president like Uhuru Kenyatta still could. The choice of Raila Odinga is what many people are questioning. Why did it have to be him?
Let me give a short my answer on that one. Let me tell you, he was previously serving as the African Union High Representative on Infrastructure, which gave him an opportunity to, also be familiar with a lot of the happenings inside there. Now, for example, if you take a retired president, to go and be the AUC chair, he has not, like I've said, he has not really related with the secretariat, the infrastructure that runs the AU. So he will take time to settle down. But when you go to someone who has been there and he knows what happens in there, he's going to hit the road running. And then also remember, Raila being in politics for a long time, he has also contacts around Africa that may make his work easier to execute. I think that, there's Kalonzo Musyoka, there is the people you have mentioned, but I think this particular one is a good one because immediately, he was the immediate former infrastructure guy in AUC. He knows how the secretariats operate. And if you take him today, even if you give the seat today where Musa Faki was sitting, he would be able to do something. These other guys will have to learn.
And of course, it sorts out a few things here locally as well.
I think what we are leaving as, aside, and we need to really focus on that, is, the role of interference of other nations outside Africa and how they dictate what happens at the AUC. May not be so outspoken, yes, but will the big brother allow us to do our business? When you talk about minerals, we know what is happening in Sierra Leone, in the Democratic Republic of the Congo, and we know the problems that have been there for Africa for the longest time. And the question, of course, would be, will Raila, contain that? There is no doubt about Raila's credentials, definitely. But the problem is, when you look at regional agreements, for example, Honorable Senator talks about your interaction with the regional leadership. You talk about COMESA, you talk about AGOA. Those agreements are crafted, and now there is the AFTA, the Africa Free Trade Agreement that has come up. These agreements were not crafted with just Kenya in mind or by any Kenyan technocrats. They have been crafted by technocrats from the United Nations, America, European nations, so that you cannot easily migrate from the provisions in those agreements to try to favor a country like Tanzania or Uganda or Kenya for that matter. And those are the challenges, I think, that Raila Odinga will actually face. He has good intention to lobby Democratic Republic of Congo, maintain your reserves, don't sell them out to France or to any other country. That is merely lobbying. So his real role would be to influence other nations to try to change their local policies. But in terms of Africa as a whole, somebody has to show me that Raila Odinga will go there and say, this is what we want for Kenya. Is there one policy for Africa? For Africa, not for Kenya. Is there one policy for Africa? No. In East Africa, you could see all these presidents came to Kenya. How come we don't have one strong currency in East Africa itself before you even go to Africa? So I think the challenges in the AUC are actually teething. And from hearsay position, Honorable Senator, if you have been the insider, I am told that the document that Raila Odinga is going to use, the blueprint, is already crafted. And it is crafted with influence from the United Nations, from Americas and European Union, and you have to pursue that agenda. What Raila will do to bring a new agenda is something really, that is curious, and I would like to know what that would be. But the issue here is that it is true Kenya has been elevated higher than it is normally because of this coming together of the East African nations. And then also, in Imuli, I have to bring this point. The problem with our country is sometimes we don't appreciate the impact negative trends in our institutions can bring outside Kenya. Whether you talk about the education sector, you talk about agriculture, you talk about tourism, a small aspect in a certain corner in Kenya can actually affect our standing globally. So you couldn't see all these presidents coming if Raila Odinga were not that type of person who, even if he's lost elections, he still comes around and tries to sit with the person who has won and who was his arch enemy. So I think that whatever we also do in our institutions, political institutions, leadership institutions, education and all that, including these strikes we see now in the country. Doctors are striking, teachers want to strike. The way you diminish and demean your people is portrayed outside the country in a certain way. And that again takes me back to how are you treating peaceful protesters on the road? How are you treating people who are coming to, present petitions to you as the head of state? Again, this goes into make the global, community understand it in a certain way.
Okay. And of course, you talked about Raila Odinga's reform credentials. If at all Africa was to take a different route, Senator, Raila Odinga, we've seen in as far as seeking reforms in the Kenyan institutions. The Constitution itself is being at the forefront of even seeking amendments to the Constitution currently, and we'll come back to discuss the Constitution. Is that what we expect when he goes to the AU? Looking at his speech yesterday, it sounded more like an acceptance speech. He was saying, I'm ready to serve, my heart is ready, my hands are steady, and I shall get the opportunity to be of service to Africa. All this, it appears he's very ready for the job. But from you, where you sit, do you think that what we should expect at the AUC, once he gets that job, is what we've been seeing him do in Kenya, seeking reforms constantly?
Okay, let me tell you, in the space which I operate in, that is the political space, you could be a member of the county assembly and yet be more powerful than the speaker himself. You could be a sweeper in State House and yet be very influential, wield more power than the PS in one of the departments. So what I'm trying to say, Fred, is that what you do with a position, the position itself doesn't matter. It is what you do with that position. And I would want to go back to Honorable Raila Odinga. During his formative years of politics, many years ago, maybe you may not have been there then, but he was elected as the deputy, as the director of deputy director of elections in the original Forum for Restoration of Democracy, FORD, the big one that was taken on President Moi at that time. It was a big thing, and all of us who were seeking change in the political setup were involved in one way or the other, and our leaders were the likes of Matiba, Jaramogi, and Shikuku, and so on, who were then together before they started disintegrating. What was Raila? Deputy Director of Elections. He wasn't a Secretary General, he wasn't a chairman, he wasn't, any big person. But people still remember that, almost 40 years down the road, because what you do with a position is what matters. It's not the position itself. If you ask many people who was the chair at that time, people won't remember, okay? So and then I will also give the same example again. If you remember, we've had ministers, very many ministers in the road sector. But during the unity government some time ago, Honorable Raila served as the Minister for Roads. And this was the first time people were seeing a minister going out, launching roads, talking to people outside Nairobi, outside their big offices. And Minister for Roads, Raila Odinga, Minister for Roads, Raila Odinga. People remember that to date. So it's not really the position and the charter that gives, it's what you do with that position. Okay. So I'm making that point because it is true that the role of the AUC chairman is very well crafted, and you have a lot of challenges because you are not the president of Africa. You can't, in fact, direct anybody. You cannot, you spend a lot of time lobbying and talking to people because the people you are dealing with are your bosses. The presidents are your bosses. You go to them and try to make them see your point of view and try to tell them, actually, President so-and-so of Namibia has also seems to be tending to this position. The head of state of Ethiopia also, and the prime minister seem to be thinking, maybe, Your Excellency, you might consider also thinking like this, so that you create a position. It is something that you continuously lobby. You are not a president. You are always lobbying to. So, one thing I will tell you, it's not that document, but it is the influence, the what you'll do with that position.
And the kind of person, right?
The kind of person that he is will make this thing achieve a lot more. I actually believe it, because if you look at how he's been able to push things here and there, even a lot of his friends who are in the struggle with him not agreeing with him, because some of the decisions he makes, they don't seem like principled. You know, we have agreed we do this, and then you go and you do something else, and then you seem to be the person benefiting, the rest of us are left outside. But it achieves something to push the agenda forward. So I believe that he would be able to achieve a lot despite the way
Fred, I don't want to, but I want to hear his wisdom as well,
yes.
in terms of
Could we take a break?
you know.
Yes. Let's take a short break because I think we are top of the hour right now. We'll come back and I'll give you an opportunity to chime into that. You're watching Morning Affair.
Hey there, friends. Welcome to Kids on the Block, where fun and imagination come alive. We dive into magical world filled with exciting adventures and awesome friends.
What position were you in?
I was number 2.
What position were you?
Number 1.
He decided to cross the bridge by his house and look for food on the other side.
We're going to do half cup of chocolate chips, and the other one, we're going to do half cup of the blueberries.
So, grab your imagination hats and get ready to explore with us. Join us every Saturday at 9 a.m. for new friends, amazing stories, and tons of laughter.
Join us as we explore the journeys of those who defy the odds and break barriers. We dive deep into the stories of triumph.
Sometimes when parenting a child with a special need or whatever disability, family life becomes a bit complicated, and you may end up raising the child on your own.
Here, we inspire.
I have a farm which one we showcase with other dyslexic kids and autism, how to farm.
Motivate.
It's never easy, but what we do, the best thing is to work with another parent who has an elder child than yours.
And break through the barriers one story.
Welcome back. You're watching Morning Cafe on TV 47 with me, Fred Indimuli. I'm still in studio with Senator Danson Mungatana and Wakili Ishmael Nyaribo. We continue looking at the biggest story on all the front pages of the dailies today. And it's not just locally. This story is across all dailies in the region, including Uganda and Tanzania. Raila Odinga's bid for the AUC chairperson. And just before the break, you wanted to get the senator's view on something.
Yeah.
I think it's about whether or not the radical Raila Odinga will be able to move international
we have
powers.
showered a lot of praise on Raila, and I don't think there is anyone who is wrong doing that. He's capable, definitely. But I'm looking at the big brother syndrome, and I'm looking at how France is interested in the mineral deposits in the Central African nations, in the DRC. I'm looking at the surge for desire for, for this gold worldwide. Every other country wants to buy gold, and they are fully aware that that is found in Africa. Is Raila going to be a statesman and escape these traps by the foreign big brothers? Because really, like I said, the agreements we have signed, we sign an agreement in COMESA and we sign another one in AGOA, we sign another in AFTA. Then you realize when a neighbor is telling you we need to go this direction, then you find a call from Washington telling you, you cannot do that because that's not what you have signed for in our agreement under AGOA or under COMESA. So how are we going to navigate this? Because actually, if we navigate this, if we can successfully go through this process and understand how we can be like India or China, who are proud nations, they even have to write in their own, their own abbreviation, whatever, the handwriting, whatever the vowels they are using are original. They are not using the normal ABC English words, So my point here is, how are we to handle Africa? I have not seen a demonstration. Of course, Raila has all good intentions, but I've not seen. You see, William Ruto the other day in France and in South Africa was being celebrated highly because of how he was steering the African agenda. Then all of a sudden, we don't see that. All of a sudden, we don't see that. So we cannot ignore the big brother syndrome.
Okay.
And I am not sure, by the way, if Raila can do 35 to 40% of that by containing the big brother, at least then we will have some, movement forward. And like he has said, correctly so also, that African Union Charter, African Union document, the blueprint for how you operate is actually crafted. Why? The big brother does not want you to think freely, because if you do, you definitely will help Africa, and they will not have a market. They can, do all these kind of things.
Senator, do you think Raila Odinga is strong enough or radical enough to be able to contain those foreign powers?
I think we should separate the issues. His candidature is and his fitness to run the AUC should be separated from the actual challenges that Africa is facing now. And Wakili Nyaribo has said it very well. The challenges are tremendous. Even within our East African bloc, there are serious challenges. Some of our neighbors are not speaking to each other. And you will find that some of our neighbors are sponsoring, especially in the DRC, they are sponsoring some sort of instability because it brings them some form of income. Those mineral deposits there, they are a very serious source of destabilization, but not just in the DRC, in other parts of Africa as well, that mercenaries are sent there and they sort of rule the area and prevent government from doing the normal tax collection, the normal running of government. Why? Because if they are in charge there, they can, take the minerals outside at a very cheap rate. So the issue of insecurity, the issue of our mineral deposits, the issue of climate within Africa, the issue of even peace and stability, the issue of the markets around Africa, like a common central bank that will navigate the kind of currency that we operate within Africa. Those are very, very serious challenges. And he will do his bit, but those are things that you don't expect anybody to finish them within the time that you're supposed to serve as AUC chair, what you can do is to make a contribution and probably pick on one issue, which I hope for Raila will be the infrastructure, because that is his area of operation, to make sure that this road from the top of Africa there, North Africa, all the way down to South is passable, to make sure there is proper communication in terms of flights, because some of these flights, even the airspace, you find you have to go all the way to Amsterdam before you connect in some of these other countries, and you are within the same continent. Or even you want to make a transaction across to your neighboring country, and you SWIFT, because you have to go all the way to New York before the money is reflected in the. We have very serious challenges, and those, we must be realistic, cannot be fixed by one person, because these have been very serious challenges that have been embedded in the continent of Africa because of our history of colonization. So I'd want to say that he has a chance in terms of making a difference if he chooses one agenda and sticks to it. Because any good president, any good continental leader, you cut your niche by defining what you want to do. You see,
you don't think him trying to contain the influence from foreign powers as something that would elevate his name higher? You say he should focus on the infrastructure.
My thinking, because that is an area he's familiar with. But yeah, if he chooses to fight with foreigners, that is another thing. But we have another thing which is central. The African Continental Free Trade area, they're supposed to make the entire Africa one market. Again, many countries have signed into this, but it has not really started working. You remember at some point, Kenya sending our coffee to Ghana and the president flagging it off, and it was being received in Accra. It was a big celebration, but the thing hasn't really taken off, you know? So after again is an area that one could choose to focus on. But you choose your battles, and this is the thing about politicians who have been there around, and they know what they can do, what they can't do, and they know what they want to achieve. So let us put all these problems, and he knows the challenges which are there before his table. He will pick the battles he wants, because you cannot fight all the battles and win. You will end up being very useless.
This, this is very interesting. I've seen in the Standard now they're saying Raila goes global as Ruto sets up shop in his staff.
True.
Is Mwananchi, of course this is an African appointment, and I'm not really trying to look at Mwananchi in Kenya, but is the ordinary man in Uganda, Kenya, Sierra Leone, Egypt, wherever, is the ordinary man the central agenda in any of these, political partnerships and movements? When you look at how Ruto is treating this particular appointment, and I said we have to be, we have to do a disclaimer. Nobody should think like we are really trying to localize what has happened.
But there is a local angle to it as well.
I mean, Ruto is in Migori today, Homa Bay, and if you remember Uhuru Kenyatta telling Ruto those days in 2017 that hii maneno ya kutangatanga, Ruto is a massive schemer. He's already consolidating, while Kalonzo is saying that now I am the head of Azimio, and you are going to sit at some committee rooms and all that. Ruto has already gone to actually pick up the pieces from where Raila has left them and telling the people, you guys, we've been together. I was in ODM. This is how it is. And then in the end, we start, complaining about this. I have also looked at how Ruto is, we can say, a giver, a guy who likes to give, really, And I've also looked at Raila. I don't know if he gives too much or he doesn't give. A giver is always scoring, as a fact.
You're saying Raila is not as generous?
No. That's not one of his strong points.
I have not been so close to him. Those who have been close to him. So a person who really gives actually gets. And this is a philosophy, a principle in life. in whichever way you look at it, whether you don't prefer the method being used. So even William Ruto is going to use that skill of giving, of being friendly. When we talk about giving, I'm not necessarily talking about dollars or shillings, but I'm saying giving yourself, giving your skill, giving your participation and whatever talent. And he's going to give on behalf of Raila Odinga so that he can become AU chairman. I mean, is it the same thing that he's doing now in Migori? Is it for the people? Is it for the good of the country and the people? Okay. And that's why you see those cartoons. So I think that people should be central so that we have enough resources in our country. The way Raila Odinga is going to, manage resources in Africa in terms of what other countries have and influence policies so that the resources can go back to the people as opposed to complex corruption cartels which will really have this tender, that tender, so that we again steal from Africans and have these big brothers do what? Get all our resources. So this thing of organizing for the AU chairmanship should be people-centered. That's my honest view.
Okay.
Not just Kenyans, but for every other African, it should be people-centered. How will Raila help the children in Liberia, the children in Ghana, the children in Kenya, so that they have enough resources so that we are at least living above poverty? Okay. So that we do not really get to be worried about who is president, who is what, because we have enough resources amongst ourselves.
And thank you for taking us to that direction because, yes, it is a big deal. The president is going to Nyanza, a region, for a 4-day tour, beginning today in Migori. It will take him to Homa Bay, Kisumu, and Siaya County as well.
Yes.
Now, the fact that this comes only a day after him launching Raila Odinga's official bid for the AUC job says a lot. It only comes about a week or two after he made appointments and included key members from that region into the cabinet. Treasury is a very big deal. It would be key to see how he will be received in this region. But that brings the angle of this main headline, the local angle.
The local politics.
The local politics into the fore. The fact that in this bid and the actions that he has taken as president, that in itself has changed the way people view him in some parts of this country, especially the Nyanza region. He should be expecting a lot of accolades once he lands in Migori today.
I agree, but I wanted to say this. When you are elected, and now I'm speaking as a person who has been around in that space for a while, when you are elected, in Kenya here, to get 40% of the vote is not easy. If you're a member of parliament, you're a senator, you're a governor, this 40% of the vote is very big. Most people do the margin of 30% and your competitor would be around 28 and then the rest of the other fellows. It's divided like that. But once someone has a show of 40%, and when you actually are showing 50% of the vote, registered vote, people say, with this seat, we have decided. You go tell us about the other seats. So in Tana River County, and I want to say this, that, for example, when I was going for the Senate seat, same thing, you keep campaigning, and then at some point, your very people tell you, this one now, you can go back and relax. This one is done. But we haven't decided about governor, we haven't decided about these other seats. Okay? So, but once you are elected, you realize that there are a number of pockets which never voted for you, because any intelligent politician must sit down and do an analysis of the IEBC results and know which polling stations you did well and the ones that you didn't. Your business is to go around trying and consolidate, because now you're senator for the entire Tana River County. Now you are president for the entire Kenya. So the very first thing the president was doing when he came in was to try and consolidate his gains, okay? And people complained, oh, why are you taking home MPs from this and other? But that is what you are supposed to do. That's what you are supposed to do. And for me, he is moving around is a schedule that Ruto has planned. And I'll tell you, it is just now people are saying...
a day after he launched the AUC bid is purely coincidental?
No, let me tell you, people may say that he's trying to do this, and maybe the State House has looked also at the politics side of it. But I know that he had a schedule, for example, of saying thank you to all the 47 counties. Most of these counties received the president for their prayers. And even at some point, people were complaining, oh, why church services? What? But it is scheduled that he wanted to go around 47 counties to say thank you. And some people were not happy with that, okay? Now, it's just that now it's going to be easier because it is perceived that he's friendly to that area. But his movement is a very scheduled and very deliberate kind of movement. Ruto is what we call an indefatigable campaigner. He's like, what did you used to call Richard Nixon in his time? In his time, he was always with the people on the road. And this is different, say, from President Uhuru, President Kibaki. In fact, President Kibaki, during our time, he never really used to engage. He was working a lot in State House. So it's a different kind of person that we are dealing with. Maybe our next president might be like President Kibaki.
Do you believe that he is keen on inheriting the support from that Nyanza region, and this is the best time for him to go for it? With the exit of Raila Odinga,
yes, definitely.
Anyone else can lay claim on that.
That's what I wanted, Honorable Senator, and I think it might come back to that. But my point, obviously, Ruto wants Nyanza by all means. In fact, you see, he won Western at a time we didn't expect. And like he says, he's an indefatigable campaigner. You know, he talked to Mudavadi behind the scenes, and by the time we were thinking we are all people in this, you know, Azimio, the guy has been taken away just after turning the bottle upside down, saying, you know, he successfully spoke to Joho, and Joho has come to the government. There is no doubt about his abilities. My point, Fred, is how do we use political institutions, leadership and governance institutions to benefit this little ordinary man? The young people in this country have no interest in going to be presidents. You know, let me tell you, when we look at Caswell, for example, I mean, liberally mentioning him because I don't have any bad motive about his, you can look, he wants just good leadership. They all come up and say, no, we want good leadership. If that is provided, there is no one who is going to start picketing for nothing. But the problem here is we sort of try to manipulate citizens. We use political institutions and leadership institutions to dangle a carrot, but once you have won my heart and I'm right here with you, and then again you drop that carrot, is not there even a little piece which I can eat to be satisfied. So this is the problem with our country, and we were just trying to compare whether Raila going to a union, like he was good riddance, for Ruto to go to Migori and then try to win all the people of Raila Odinga, so to say. It is okay to win these people, definitely. By the way, it is okay if Nyanza also can come in government. The point is, are they coming so that the young people in Homa Bay can honestly access resources, or you are just going to use Mbadi and Opio and a few others, and then you leave the young people to languish? That is where the fear is. I don't think the fear is that Munga Tana becomes governor, God bless, or that I become something. This is not the issue. Is how do we manipulate, and it is historical in this country, how we manipulate political institutions and the governance and leadership institutions for our own personal benefit. And no one has ever really come out to show where is the stop. And that's why you've seen Raila sort of mutating from he has lost. Then he realizes, even if I keep quiet and I am just with the people, it will not help the people. So he changes again and says, no, even if it means I shake my enemy's hand, I will for the good of Kenya. And that is why you saw Ruto, praising him a lot, Gachagua himself praising Raila a lot. And then look at the irony. The same young people who are standing behind Raila, who have made him that big also, are being thrown into the cells and they are going to be jailed. They will go through a court process that is really meaningless in the sense that they should just be let free. So let the people, let the young people enjoy the droppings of power without having to go to office. And this is achievable by putting resources to in the hands of young people, yes.
Gentlemen, I want us now to direct this conversation to somewhere different. And you mentioned Caswell Makoure. He, alongside Morara Kebaso, who's been a serious critic of the president and the various projects he has been launching and relaunching and commissioning, of which he'll be launching quite a number in Nyanza. Starting in Migori, water projects, the Kegonga cluster water project, and the Ngere Mapera Road, and Inspect Lower Kuja irrigation project. I'm sure Morara Kebaso will be talking about that. But today they will be attending a very interesting event organized by the Wiper Democratic Movement, Kalonzo Musyoka, Okoa Katiba, Okoa Kenya initiative discussion on the Katiba 45 years appraisal. Yesterday was 27th of August, marking exactly 14 years after the promulgation of the Constitution 2010. And a lot of discussions, a lot of attempts have been made to amend this Constitution. It would appear up till now it has proven difficult. So the discussions are around, have we implemented the Constitution as we should have? Issues around social and economic rights, the right to education, which is a big discussion now, implementation of the Bill of Rights, devolution, Senator, corruption, tribalism, multipartyism, with how Kenya Kwanza and UDA has been cannibalizing other parties as well, the two-thirds gender rule, as well as the conduct of the judiciary. What is your assessment of the Constitution 2010, 14 years later, in as far as implementation is concerned? We appear to have been very idealistic in coming up with this very progressive document, of which 14 years later, we are not able to implement quite a huge chunk of the same.
Okay, first of all, as Senator, one of my prime responsibility is to fight for my county and protect my county and devolution as a whole at the national level. And I will tell you this, Kenyans listening to me, Tana River got its first tarmac road with the first governor when devolution came. We started seeing high-rise buildings in Tana River County with devolution. We started seeing very many of these houses that are here in Nairobi with devolution. Our own Muthaigas started developing in various parts of our county. We've started seeing drainage systems being constructed in some of the market areas with devolution. Our own people sitting in the county making decisions for us, saying that we shall send a doctor, and a doctor is sent there. We have seen management of local resources there. When someone is employed there, it is our own CEC who is able to say that huyo ataenda pale na atafanya kazi pale. We have seen our own young men taking important positions and young women in the county. They are the ones who have been coming to help us within the structure of devolution. So for me, and Kenyans listening to me, devolution for us is a sacred thing. You can stay telling us, oh, we haven't done that, this hasn't happened, and what. It is true. But don't mix the discussion about mismanagement of resources with the wins that we have. Governors who have come, there have been some good governors, and there's been very bad governors who should be in jail. Some should even be hanged. But that doesn't change the fact that there have been very solid things that have been achieved.
What would you say about the cost of devolution? Because there are those who argue that the structure we have currently is too expensive and unsustainable. That yes, it may have been good and ideal, but looking at it, we are complaining about the debt level. Our economy is not doing so well. Funding 47 governments is proving almost impossible.
Fred, let me tell you, we passed a budget of how much before the the finance bill fracas, we passed a budget of about 3.7 trillion, okay, the entire budget for the nation. And when we did the division of revenue for the Senate, because we do the division of revenue for the government of the president and the governments of 47 governors, 400 billion, actually 400.1 billion is what we allocated for governors, together with maybe grants that will come from the national government and monies that will come from partners. So even if you combine everything else, it will be probably 600 billion if you add everything else. From a budget of what? 3.7 trillion. What are you saying? What are you saying, that the money is too much, we are funding too many? No. I think we need to be honest with ourselves. The problem is not funding these 47 counties. The problem is there has been mismanagement of funds within these 47 counties. And we need to fix that, for sure. We need to fix that.
You said we should not mix those two things.
But we need, yeah, those are different discussions. Sustaining devolution should not be debatable. But fixing is a challenge that we are facing in the Senate, and we think that a lot more can be done. For example, the ESCC, which is supposed to be the prime mover in that direction, the DCI, which is supposed to help us, they don't give support to what the Auditor General's reports are saying. Even when our committees of the Senate have passed that this is a crime scene, this particular happening here is a crime scene. This county government the entire county government is a crime scene. Nothing happens. Okay. So we need to fix that issue. But saying that 400 billion out of the 3.7 trillion, this country, it is too many. Those are people who are just talking, and they don't have the benefit of the facts. The fact of the matter is there's wastage, there's a lot of things that need to be fixed, but it is not that we cannot support the units of development.
What are your thoughts on that, if we could stay with devolution for now?
I think the way devolution was implemented was also haphazard. It wasn't well thought. I say this because a lot of counties in this country, not a lot, some counties actually got a bad deal, a raw deal when you look at the kind of the quality of the governors themselves, whether they understand anything before they were voted into office. If now looking, back, I would have preferred a model where probably we could set certain targets as a country. And we could say that you remember the degree qualification thing for everybody who's being elected, and it died, in some sense for some officers. There ought to have been a model through which you determine, because we wanted to really grow the counties. Some counties have not grown, by the way. There are counties I know, for example, who earn, who spend 70% or thereabout on salaries and other management.
Some of those county governments have simply become employment bureaus.
So imagine, and why is that happening? Because this is an elected leader. He has to do according to the wishes of his people. The loopholes in the law allow him to do this or that. So I feel that the way we implemented and look at even the most prestigious counties also, when you look at the complaints from people, and like the senator is saying in terms of mismanaging, resources, the things you hear actually, if you are sober somewhere, just seated and you just, really listen to what people are saying, you can't even believe that. So why? Because there is a gap in the law. There is these are elected leaders. So the way we have implemented the devolution, I think, should have been better. They probably should have said, for the coming 10 years, we will restrict the way people come into the office of governor, MCA, those ones who, even Senate for that matter, so that you get the best You get the best for 10 years at least, for 10 or 20 years. But we didn't do that. So everybody, you know, was going to the people, I want to be, they keep checking your papers, you say I have, you know, you don't have, or you know, this was the problem. But in terms of, like he says, whether devolution is correct, I also believe that it
Do you disagree with those who say that probably
go.
47 governments are too many, we should reduce the number? There have been those suggestions.
There's a problem, Fred. You know, we are a special country. We have our own history. We have already 47. When you start to cascade to 20, the ones you are removing, what are you going to do? Are you going to, for example, Taita Taveta, isn't it? So are you going to call it Musambweni County? Because if you name it Taita and you don't put Taveta, if you, for example, Kisii, okay? You know, you assume I'm Kisii, but really I come from Nyamira, isn't it? Are you going to call the county Kisii County or Nyamira County? Or you're going to call it Kisii Nyamira? What are you going to call? So our people, the history, you must be very careful about that. And that's how, you know, you remember we had 8 provinces. You call them regions today. The people, the way they endear themselves to their history. Once you remove it, they start assuming you are not even their president, you are not their governor. So that's a very delicate thing. In fact, it's better we maintain them as they are, but don't create more, because I know Suba is asking to be recognized through a county. I know other, even in Kisii they are talking of Gucha, you know. So I think addition is not necessary. But at this stage now, trying to say that we will merge the counties, yes, what will you call them? Okay. And that's I think, a major problem. If we start doing that, we may get into more troubles for the coming 10, 15 years before again we revert to normalcy.
14 years later, it is prime for us to consider proper amendments. We've tested the tenacity of this constitution. We know how far it can go. What we know for sure is that amending it is not a walk in the park. But 14 years later, there appears to be a congruence of thoughts, now especially with Raila Odinga working with the President William Ruto, that probably they could marshal up enough goodwill to amend this constitution. What are some of the things you feel really need a proper relook at on this document?
I would want to say this. I've given you a quarter loaf of bread. You have not eaten, you've not finished, but you're looking, there are 3 quarters on the table and you're saying, no, I need another quarter. Yet you haven't finished the quarter I have given you. Back in high school, we used to divide the bread into 4 pieces. I don't know if that's what you did. But in our place, food was never enough. We always used to go to our Mr. Nganga, who was the tax shopkeeper. I don't know, God bless him. I don't know where he is nowadays, but he saved our lives. Quarter, and you buy a whole loaf and you go and sell the quarters. But I have sold you a quarter, or I've given you the quarter. You are my friend. You haven't even eaten it. You've not even eaten a quarter of the quarter I've given you, and you want another quarter and another quarter. It doesn't make sense. The implementation of the current constitution has not been done fully. People talking about going for more amendments, these are people who are playing around with our minds. These are people who want us to shift from the challenges that we are facing in implementation of the constitution right now and taking us to other theoretical stories again. What are we going to do with governors who are stealing money? What are we going to do with the agencies that have been charged with the responsibility to deal with these matters and they're not dealing with them? The current constitution as it stands now, we have not implemented even 3/4 of it. And then now you want to say, let us stop. You know, the question that the Gen Zs were asking, which I fully support, was what we didn't do during our time when we were fighting for our own space of democracy. Remember, Jomo Kenyatta and that group, they never focused on treasury. They focused on independence. And they got the independence, okay? Then we came the second liberation. There were our leaders in front there, the Orengos, the Kiraitos, and all those, Getobo Manyara, and that team that was there, and just in front of them, there were the Matibas and so on. That group fought for the second liberation. We want more space. We want this. We do not want to be under an oppressive president. The president is overbearing. We can hardly breathe as a parliament. Judges are being appointed by the same president. We can't run a country like this. We need more space. We need independence. We need multi-party, not one party where if you are not in Kanu, you are nowhere. No. We need more space. And we brought in a new constitution. They didn't talk about the treasury. Nobody talked about the money, okay? And we went to the streets, jail, and what at that time. That was the second liberation. What these young men are pushing for, and I think that should be the discussion. What is Treasury doing with our resources? Why, President William Ruto, are you raising these taxes? They are too much. What is the product? Why is Okanga's question, the Auditor General, why are they not being answered? Why are you paying yourselves so much money? County governments, and they started from the national government and they went to county governments. Now, for me, that is where the discussion should be. And we should not ignore what the young people raised during those riots, because they raised the prime question that has not been raised since independence. People come into office, they tell you the country is fine, now we are independent. And people come, they tell you now we are a democratic nation, but they are stealing. The roads are not being constructed, their houses are big, but outside their houses, there are potholes everywhere. They can bring in trucks to water their houses, but there's no water for the entire neighborhood in the taps. So the young people are asking, where is our money going? You see, Treasury, we want to mulika you. We want to know what is happening in this area. And I fully support, that is the discussion we should be having around the Constitution right now. Okay. And I think if we get it right, let's not waste that moment. Let us not waste that moment. And I feel like we are moving away from that, we are going back to the politics. Because you see, where we started losing it, and I'm very sorry to have to say this, is when the country now started saying, by appointing Akina Mbandi and what, we are bringing back a coalition. And that was very sad, because there's nothing like that. ODM has not dissolved. UDA has not sat down to discuss anything about that. And I wish Kenyans can see that we adopted the American Constitution, which allows, Bill Clinton had Republicans in his cabinet. Obama had a Republic, and they were all Democrats, but they had Republicans within their own cabinets. So that it doesn't mean that the parties have come together. It just means, just like the president can pick the head of the army, the head of whatever from whichever part of the country, the head of judiciary from whichever side of Kenya, it should be the same for the cabinet.
But we must agree that the working relationship we see on the dailies today, handshakes between President Ruto and Raila Odinga, means something. They were on opposite sides of this debate on amending the constitution. Now they're at least talking to each other.
In fact, between Raila and Ruto, it's slightly different. The example Senator has given, for example, of Mbadi. Is Mbadi not an MP? Is Opio not a member of parliament, isn't it?
Yes.
So what has happened? The constitution does not allow member of parliament to be...
No, they resigned. They resigned before they...
Yes, but the point is, my question is, so what? Who is an MP for where these people come from right now? They don't have a member of parliament.
Correct.
I want to agree to the extent that our constitution is robust and it has not been implemented, but there is a gap, I think, which we created when the draft has met this constitution. And what is the gap? I think that we give a lot of discretion and leeway to, leadership institutions. Well, if you look at the developed economies, everyone goes as per a particular system. And there is no room left for you to exercise your discretion to an extent of prejudicing a citizen. So what could be done actually in the case of Mbadi being appointed, whatever, The rules should be very clear. The rules should be very clear. Let me tell you, a judge, when you go to the court, really, will exercise his discretion to decide how much bond he is going to give you. And yet it's a crime of obtaining money by false pretense or fraud or whatever, or it's murder for that matter. These are suspicions, of course. But why should he be left with that discretion to determine how much? Why? Why can't it be that we all know if it is defilement, this is the way it is, and that act has actually tried to make it very, very specific. It's 14 years, it's 20 years. Why do we give leaders this discretion that the president knows he can actually call somebody and tell him, I want to make you a minister from tomorrow? He should not have that leeway. The rule should be such that, okay, because you are a minister, you first, an MP, you will resign well before even Parliament vets you, so that we know that we are doing things in the right way. Now, when you talk about intention to unify the country, there is no position of Prime Minister, for example. They want to bring this. There is no position of Prime Cabinet Secretary, but it is there. We repeat it every day.
Official opposition.
Today, yes. So what are we, official opposition, like you say? And I remember the president, when he came to power, he said he wants to definitely have this office properly recognized. So for me, these are some of the amendments that actually should be well thought, and we should have the Constitution amended to be more specific. When you look at the chapter on integrity and governance, it is still loose. How? It allows EACC to investigate, like Senator mentioned, then the DCI cannot do anything because there is conflicting of powers, who should investigate, who should charge. At one time there was the DPP has a conflict with DCI. So I think that our Constitution, much as it is just a guiding book and the real law is in the acts, our laws should be that clear that you cannot go beyond. Once you go beyond it, it's clear.
Okay.
That you have gone beyond that. And therefore, just to finalize what I was saying earlier about devolution, Fred, it is still time. There is still enough time now to correct the mess. I think that going forward, we should be able to say we set a threshold for people who want to be governors, because they are going to, manage a lot of resources for people. We must find a way in our own, in our own society, through our own agreement, how we can get into office the most competent. The most competent, to the extent that even where we think our county is not well endowed with understanding what kind of job a governor is going to do, it should be assisted, if you ask me, by the central government and by the people of Kenya. Yes.
Okay. Fred, let me just say this. The United Kingdom does not have a written constitution. Wakili knows this is year one law. There are countries with written constitution, like the US. There are countries without any written document. And they have character. They have a constitution. They have principles that guide their nation. I mean, UK is one of the most quoted democracy in the world, and they don't have a written constitution. So why are Kenyans fixated with over legislation? Everything, let's amend the constitution, let's do this, let's amend. I have said, a quarter I've shared with you as my friend. The 3 quarters, you still want another one, and this one you haven't eaten. Please, let us shift the mindset of Kenyans from this legislation over legislation, and let us make what we have work. Let us make what we have work. Like, for example, right now, there is a lot of power within the same constitution to have several of these governors arrested, several PSAs, cabinet secretaries who have messed up, arrested and charged in court. Can we make it work? Like Nigeria, can we have a few of these governors picked up and jailed? Do you think that is a failure within the Constitution, that we've not been able to hold to account those people? It's not a failure of the Constitution. I'm saying the Constitution is there providing. I think it is a political will. There is something that will only happen if we have a very strong man who is pushing that agenda. You see, maybe right now, President Ruto does not need to be, maybe doesn't have even that political muscle, doesn't want to spread himself too much. But some of the governors he's meeting are thieves. They are welcoming him into and he knows they are thieves. They have many pending cases. Some of the people in cabinet are rotten people. But maybe he doesn't have that political goodwill right now to deal with those matters. But I'm saying there is a problem with over legislation. Let us deal with what we have. Right now, what we need is political goodwill and political muscle to implement the constitution which is there. Let me tell you, take every Friday, take a governor who has, and those cases are there, by the way. If you go to the office of the DPP today, those cases are there. Take every Friday a file, charge one guy. Next Friday, charge another guy. Next Friday, charge another guy. Very soon, everybody, Council of Governor will call a very urgent meeting. What is happening? What is happening? And then everyone will go back to their places and start being, more careful about their funds. Do we need a constitutional amendment for that? So what I'm saying is that let us get out of this fixation about constitutional amendment. Let me tell you, for example, the question of appointing people from all parts of the country. The Constitution allows it, you see. It has not been implemented in the past. William Ruto implements it. You see, that tells you our Constitution is very, we just haven't used it.
So how do you deal with goodwill? If the president, for example, has no goodwill, isn't it? How do you deal with it? Mm-hmm. Gen Z think that we can just go storm parliament and do all these things. Why can't we have it in our Constitution that the president can be impeached if there is sufficient evidence that he has no goodwill? Mm-hmm. You see, it looks really petty when you put such in, especially a document called a constitution. But he's mentioned about Britain, talk about all these Netherlands, Poland, US. How did they come to where they are? They created strictures and structures that no one can deviate from. In Kenya, by the way, you can deviate from anything. You can be accused of murder and you still, in leadership, you can be accused of, like he says, a robbery and theft, and you're still the governor. So what then can be put in our documents to encourage young people to at least implement what is in the Constitution? And that, I think, is putting it there, right there, that if a governor lacks goodwill, he actually can be impeached. Not just there are mofas.
There are examples of instances where we've defied this Constitution, and openly so. The issue of boundaries review, which is very well stipulated in the law, and they say within 8 years and not after 12 years. That has lapsed. There appears to be no consequence to this. The president swore to protect and defend this Constitution, but it would appear there are instances where we can just go around it and not do anything about it, and there will be no consequence. Does that worry you?
I think bringing that impeachment angle is very, very important.
That if you fail to ensure...
Consequences should be dire, yes. And everyone should know, if I don't do this, the country will ask me why I'm not doing it. And in fact, it will cushion the president, the sitting president. It will cushion him from blame from his friends that, why can't you protect me? But the Constitution is very clear. It says the country, if I do this, Parliament may save me, but the country can actually impeach me. Okay. So I think that all these submissions are correct. But in my view, we should seize the moment and try and see which are the loose ends we did not tie properly and make them work, so that we put our leaders to account.
Yes, even the Supreme Court gave an advisory on the two-thirds gender rule and said Parliament as it is should be dissolved. We seem to have managed to wriggle ourselves out of it, and we continue without any worry. That is a huge concern.
The first, the chapter 1, article 1 of the Constitution gives the sovereignty of the Republic of Kenya to the people. Okay? We the people. Okay? Unlike, say, in countries where they have a king, the sovereign is the king. So what the king says is what is supposed to happen. So the sovereign in our case is a very complicated person. The one we call Wanjiko is the one who says this and is the one who says this. Does Wanjiko today agree when you say boundaries time is over, So let us dissolve some constituencies. Does Wanjiku agree that we remove constituencies? I mean, even if Wanjiku himself wrote, or herself wrote in a document he calls the Constitution, does he agree that some constituencies go? It's not possible. It's not, so we find a way that we protect. That's why they are protected constituencies, you know, although they don't meet the threshold, but they are still protected. And to lose those ones, it is very difficult. Now, the difference between myself and a judge is that I'm elected. I have a donated power of the sovereign, you know, and the country can be governed through donated power or by direct, the people themselves directly, the sovereign himself directly. So I am a little more sensitive. When you say 2/3 gender rule, so if we don't meet this, let's dissolve parliament. I will come and tell you, hey, my friend, back home, they don't want this dissolution. This thing you're talking about is not what Wanjiku wants. Why? I have donated power, okay? And I'm listening to the people. And the people are saying, we want, what do we want now? The bread prices to go down. What do we want now? The fuel prices to go down. What do you want? I want a road. I want my bursaries to be consolidated. I take my child to school. Don't start telling me, tuvunje, twende kura sahi kufanya nini? What is it? Fix the problems.
How do you fix it apart from amending the Constitution and removing some things that appear impossible to implement?
Now, I'm saying this, that right now, it is not a constitutional moment. You know, it's not a time for changing this. It is a time to deliver to the people. And I keep saying, let us not waste our energies on talking about things that we cannot do now. Let us agree that what we need is to fix the rules. That's what Wanjiku is. I was home just day before yesterday and in Tana River County. I am not the governor. I'm not executive. I don't have executive power. I'm not handling any pass. But they tell you, Mheshimiwa, wewe ndio uko hapa. Please, our dispensary is not working. And I want you to go, and I don't care. Who is it? You start telling, you know, the governor is supposed to do this, the president. No. You are the one who is here. Go and tell them, we don't have bursaries. What is happening? I have a child who is supposed to be in university. I have one who is in college, and they are at home. I don't care what problems you people are having. I want my child to go to school. Okay. You see, so this is what, and I wish, you know, people sometimes in this NGO world are not really aware of what is happening. We are bearing these burdens every single day. I'm going on Saturday, and I know I'm going to be told off. And then you sit there and the people tell you, my friend, we've elected, you are doing nothing for us. What is wrong with you? You see, so they're not telling me, go and amend the Constitution. And when I come back and I'm in the Senate debating, I don't say amend the Constitution. Okay. I say, can you fix my road? Can you add me police stations? Can you fix this bursary issue? You know, so I like the debate now about consolidation of the bursaries. That is what our people are talking about. They are not talking about, let us go to another constitution and what and what. That's
I think, Fred, leadership should also be aware
45 seconds, final word.
Should be aware of the direction of the country, the direction of its people. Like, you understand your people so well in Taita. I understand my people in Nyamira, for example. In Tana River, sorry, yes. in Taita. I mean, in Nyamira, I understand my people. There are times where you actually must come up and pull your people out of where they are. If you look at the president, the way he started, all these policies he was trying to implement, he meant good. In his own mind, philosophy, he knew that he wants to take Kenya far much ahead. But the Kenyans don't want where you are taking them. Okay. And the people of your constituency don't want where you are taking them. It's not because they don't want. We must get this clear. It is their hunger. It is their fears. When you operate from the principle of fear, I mean, you will go the wrong direction. So leadership must at times craft rules and laws that will protect the ordinary citizen from a governor who is greedy. So I think we should also bear that in mind. We should not allow people to pull us to the whole direction they want to go.
Asante sana Wakili Ishmael Nyaribo and Danson Mungatana, Senator, Tana River County, for your time at TA47 and for your contribution to this discussion about the big story, Raila Odinga's AUC chairperson bid, as well as the progress we are making in implementing the Constitution 14 years on. Well, that has been the State of the Nation.